Get your junk car off my street. The shout ripped across the cul-de-sac like a gunshot. Neighbors froze. Kids playing basketball dropped the ball. Dogs barked. Everyone turned toward the commotion. At the center of it stood her. Karen, blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, a floral blouse stretched too tight. She was red in the face, wagging her finger like she owned the whole block. In front of her stood a tall man in a pressed shirt, calm but firm, with his hands lifted slightly in defense. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "this is my driveway. My vehicle is parked legally." But Karen wasn't having it. She took a hard step forward, jabbing her finger in the air. "Don't you talk back to me. I've lived here 20 years. I know the rules, and people like you don't belong breaking them. Not in my neighborhood." The crowd stirred. You could feel the tension tighten like a wire about to snap. Then it happened. Karen leaned in, her face twisted in rage, and spat right at him. Gasps erupted. A woman across the street covered her mouth. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." A teen pulled out his phone to record. The man didn't move at first. The spit landed on his cheek and dripped down slowly, but he just stood there, steady, his jaw tightening. His silence made the scene feel heavier, like everyone was holding their breath at once. Karen sneered, almost proud of what she'd done. "That's what I think of people like you," she hissed. And then he finally spoke. "You have no idea who you're talking to." Her smirk faltered for a second, but she quickly doubled down. "Oh, I know exactly who you are. Some outsider who thinks he can stroll in and ignore standards. Well, guess what? This community has rules, and I'm the one who enforces them. I'm the HOA here." A murmur rippled through the neighbors. Someone whispered, "We don't even have an active HOA anymore." But Karen either didn't hear it or didn't care. The man calmly pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, wiped his cheek, and looked her square in the eyes. "You keep saying you're in charge, but you're about to find out the truth." Karen barked a laugh, sharp and mocking. "Oh, please. What truth? You're nothing here. Nothing." But the way he stood, so controlled, so steady, sent a different message. He wasn't rattled. He wasn't afraid. And for the first time, Karen's bravado wavered. That's when the whispers started. "Wait, who is he? I heard he just moved in last week. Why isn't he yelling back?" Phones were still recording. The whole block was watching, the drama unfolding like a live show. Karen, realizing the attention was on her, puffed herself up again. "Everyone here knows me. I've kept this place in order for decades. And I'll be damned if some stranger comes in and—" She didn't finish, because just then, the man reached into his briefcase, pulled out a crisp folder, and held it up where everyone could see. Karen froze. "Let me reintroduce myself," he said calmly, voice carrying through the cul-de-sac. "My name is Marcus Johnson, and as of this month, I'm the new HOA President." Gasps. Literal gasps. Heads turned. Eyes widened. Even the teens recording couldn't help blurting out, "No way." Karen's face drained of color. What did you just say?" "You heard me," Marcus replied. "I'm the legally elected HOA President." "Which means, Karen, I'm your boss." For the first time all day, Karen was silent. Her sunglasses slipped slightly down her nose as she gaped at him. The crowd broke into a low hum of shock and disbelief. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't raise his hand. He just stood tall, folder in hand, letting the weight of his words sink in. And in that silence, you could feel it. The entire neighborhood had just shifted. Karen thought she was untouchable. She thought she ruled the block. But now, the game had changed. And this was only the beginning. If you think spitting on a neighbor is crossing the line, wait until you see how Karen reacts when she learns what being under Marcus's authority really means. Because this fight, it's far from over. For a long moment, the cul-de-sac was silent. Marcus stood there, folder in hand, the new HOA President. Karen's mouth opened, then snapped shut again, like her brain couldn't compute what had just happened. Finally, she found her voice. No, this is a trick. You think you can just waltz in here with some papers and claim authority? I don't believe it." Marcus didn't blink. "Believe what you want. The board vote was official. The county recognized it. And from this day forward, I oversee this community." The neighbors stirred. A man across the street muttered, "I got the election letter last month, Another woman nodded slowly. Yeah, I thought it was a scam at first, but Karen spun around, pointing at them furiously. Don't you dare take his side. He's lying. There was no election. I would know if there was. But the truth was already slipping through her fingers. People weren't nodding with her anymore. They were whispering to each other, their eyes darting back and forth between her and Marcus. Karen's cheeks flushed red. She turned back to Marcus, eyes blazing. You think you can humiliate me? You think you can embarrass me in front of my neighbors? Marcus's voice stayed calm, measured. You embarrassed yourself, Karen. I didn't spit on anyone. You did that all on your own. A ripple of chuckles spread through the crowd. Karen's head snapped toward the sound, and whoever laughed instantly went silent. She took a step closer to Marcus, so close her perfume hit the air like a cloud of cheap flowers. You won't last. I'll make sure of it. You don't belong here, and everyone knows it. I've kept this community in line for decades. People respect me. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Respect? Or fear? That cut deeper than she expected. For the first time, Karen's jaw trembled, but she quickly masked it with another sneer. Call it whatever you want, but I am this neighborhood, and if you think some flimsy title makes you my superior, you've got another thing coming. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably. No one dared step in, but you could feel the unease building like static before a storm. Karen wasn't finished. She whipped out her phone, waving it in the air. You know what? I'm calling the police. Right now. You're trespassing. You're harassing me. You're impersonating an officer of this community. Marcus tilted his head, almost pitying. Go ahead. Call them. I'll wait right here. And when they show up, I'll hand them my official papers and they'll confirm everything. But you'll have to explain why you spit on a neighbor in front of witnesses and half a dozen cameras. Karen froze. Slowly, she realized at least 3 neighbors were still recording her every move. Her eyes darted around wildly. Turn those off. You can't film me without permission. But no one lowered their phones. If anything, more cameras came up. Karen looked like a cornered animal, snapping her head from side to side, searching for an escape. Marcus folded the folder neatly and tucked it back into his briefcase. This conversation is over. I suggest you calm down before you dig yourself into a hole you can't climb out of. Karen's nostrils flared. She stomped her foot like a child. You haven't seen the last of me. You'll regret ever stepping foot here. I promise you that. And with that, she spun on her heel and stormed toward her house, muttering curses under her breath. But just before slamming her front door, she turned and shouted one last warning. This isn't finished. Not by a long shot. The door rattled shut, leaving the neighborhood in stunned silence. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then whispers started again, cautious and uncertain. Did she really just spit on him? Yeah, in front of everyone. And he's the president now. Marcus exhaled slowly, as though finally letting go of a weight. He gave a small nod to the neighbors and walked back toward his driveway. But even as he reached his porch, he could feel it. The tension wasn't gone. It was just beginning. Because people like Karen don't retreat quietly. They plot. They plan. They come back louder and angrier. That night, the neighborhood wasn't calm. Porch lights stayed on. Curtains twitched as people peeked outside. And in Karen's house, shadows moved behind the blinds long past midnight. The next morning, things got worse. Printed flyers appeared on doorsteps, stuffed in mailboxes, even taped to garage doors. Each one carried Karen's scrawled handwriting in bold black ink. HOA, election invalid. Do not pay new fees. Do not recognize new president. Stand with Karen. Neighbors woke up to find the notices littered across their lawns. Some laughed it off. Others frowned, worried. And some, too used to Karen's dominance, actually believed it. Marcus collected 3 of the flyers from his own yard, shaking his head. She's doubling down, he muttered. Anna, his wife, stood by the window, arms crossed. She's not going to stop. You embarrassed her. Now she's going to war. And she was right. Karen wasn't just angry. She was mobilizing. She called old friends, sent mass texts, knocked on doors. She painted Marcus as a fraud, a danger, an outsider trying to take over. The division was growing. Half the block sided with Marcus quietly. The other half, too afraid of Karen's wrath, stayed silent, or worse, nodded along with her. It was the beginning of a neighborhood battle that would drag everyone into its chaos. And Marcus? He was in for the fight of his life. Karen had already crossed the line by spitting on him. But the smear campaign she launched next? That was something no one saw coming. By the end of the week, the neighborhood looked like a battlefield without bullets. Half the homes had Karen's flyers stuck in their mailboxes. The other half had quietly handed them to Marcus. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some whispered Marcus wasn't even qualified. Others claimed Karen had been president for years and was unfairly overthrown. Every driveway, every backyard fence became a debating ground. And in the middle of it all, Marcus stayed calm. Too calm, which only made Karen angrier. Saturday morning, the quiet shattered again. A convoy of 3 cars pulled into the cul-de-sac. Doors opened, and out stepped 3 sharply dressed individuals holding binders and clipboards. The official HOA board. Neighbors rushed to their windows. Curtains fluttered. Kids peeked out from behind screen doors. Everyone wanted to see what was about to unfold. Karen burst from her front door like she'd been waiting all night. "Finally," she cried, stomping down her walkway. "Finally, you people show up to deal with this fraud." She marched up to the first board member, a woman in a Navy suit. "I demand you remove this man immediately. He's been parading around like some president, but he's nothing but a liar. He spit on me, threatened me, and harassed me in my own neighborhood." Gasps from the crowd. Everyone knew what had really happened. Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably, whispering, "That's not true. We saw it," but Karen didn't care. She was putting on a performance. Marcus stepped out onto his porch, briefcase in hand, shoulders squared. He walked calmly down the steps and approached the group. "Good morning," he said evenly. "I assume you're here regarding the recent election." The board members nodded politely. The man in a gray blazer opened his binder. "Yes, Mr. Johnson. We're here to finalize your introduction to the community as the new president." Karen's jaw dropped. What did you just say?" The man didn't flinch. "You heard me, Ms. Williams. Mr. Johnson was lawfully elected as HOA President in last month's vote. We're here to make it official." Karen's face turned scarlet. She spun toward the neighbors, her arms flailing. "Do you hear this? They've been tricked. This is corruption. This is fraud." The woman in the Navy suit cleared her throat firmly. "Ms. Williams, the ballots were counted. The paperwork has been filed with the county. The election is valid." Marcus calmly opened his briefcase and handed over his folder. "Here are the certified results. Every detail has been verified." The neighbors leaned in, murmuring. A few even clapped quietly. Karen whipped around, eyes wild. No, this isn't happening. I've been the president here for years. Everyone knows that." The man in the gray blazer shook his head. "Respectfully, Ms. Williams, you haven't held office for nearly 6 years. This community's HOA had dissolved. You were never reelected. Any claims you've made since then were unauthorized." Karen staggered back like she'd been struck. "Unauthorized?" she repeated, her voice cracking. The board member nodded. "Yes. In fact, the notices you've been handing out, the fines you've claimed to collect, those were illegal. We'll be investigating further." The neighborhood went dead silent. You could hear the leaves rustling in the breeze. Karen's face crumpled into something between fury and fear. "You can't do this to me," she hissed. "I've given my life to this neighborhood. I've kept these lawns trimmed, these driveways clean, these houses in line. Without me, this place falls apart." Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm but sharp as steel. "No, Karen. Without you, this place can finally breathe." The neighbors erupted in murmurs. Some clapped louder this time. One even shouted, "About time." Karen whipped toward them, her voice shrill. "Traitors, every last one of you. After everything I've done, you side with him?" Marcus didn't flinch. "They're not siding with me, Karen. They're siding with the truth." Her lip trembled, her fists clenched. For a moment, it looked like she might spit again, lash out, do something reckless. But the presence of the board, and the dozens of cameras recording, kept her frozen. The woman in the Navy suit closed her binder. "This meeting is concluded. Mr. Johnson, congratulations. Ms. Williams, We'll be in touch regarding your actions. Karen's knees wobbled. She opened her mouth to scream again, but no words came out. Just a strangled sound, half fury, half desperation. Marcus turned back toward his house, the briefcase under his arm. But before he stepped inside, he glanced at the crowd. Thank you all for your patience. This community deserves peace. That starts now. The neighbors applauded openly this time. The sound rolled through the cul-de-sac like a victory march. Karen stood alone on the sidewalk, her sunglasses slipping, her fists trembling at her sides. For once, she had no power, no authority, no one backing her up. And as Marcus closed his door, she whispered one last venomous line to herself. This isn't over. Not yet. Karen just lost her crown in front of the entire neighborhood. The neighborhood thought it was over. The board had spoken. Marcus was officially president, and Karen had been exposed. But Karen wasn't the type to go quietly. 2 nights later, at 2 a.m., headlights cut across the cul-de-sac. A car crept along, its engine low, its driver hidden. Neighbors stirred, pulling back blinds. And there she was, Karen, dressed in black, sunglasses at night, clutching a stack of papers. She ran from mailbox to mailbox, shoving envelopes inside. Some laughed. Others pulled out their phones to record. The woman who had once paraded in daylight, barking orders, was now skulking like a thief. By sunrise, every house had received her final warning. The letter screamed in bold red ink. Do not recognize the fraudulent HOA President. Your real leader is Karen Williams. It went on for 3 pages, accusing Marcus of theft, corruption, and psychological abuse. She even demanded each family pay her $200 to keep the neighborhood safe. By noon, Marcus had one of the flyers in hand. He walked to the center of the cul-de-sac, neighbors gathering around him. He held it up and said calmly, everyone who received this, keep it. Do not respond. Do not pay, because this time the law is involved. Just then, 2 police cruisers rolled up, lights flashing. Karen burst out of her house, screaming, they're here for him, for the fraud. Take him away. But the officers didn't even look at Marcus. They walked straight to Karen. Ms. Williams? One asked. Yes, that's me. Finally, someone's doing their job. The officer's expression was stone cold. Ma'am, you're under investigation for mail tampering, harassment, and attempted extortion. The crowd gasped. Phone shot up, recording every second. Karen froze. What? No, this is backwards. I'm the victim here. The second officer held up one of her flyers. You delivered these last night, correct? Karen stammered. I was just protecting my community. That's not your role anymore, ma'am, the officer said. And it hasn't been for years. Please step aside. Karen's face twisted. She spun toward Marcus, pointing with a trembling hand. You did this to me. You poisoned them against me. You think you've won, but I'll never bow to you. Marcus met her glare calmly. You don't have to bow to me, Karen. You just have to stop hurting people. The officers gently took Karen by the arms. She resisted at first, but the weight of the stairs, the cameras, the silence of neighbors who no longer feared her, it all pressed down like a mountain. For the first time, Karen looked small. As she was escorted toward the cruiser, she snapped one last time. You'll regret this. All of you. This neighborhood will crumble without me. But her words fell flat. No one flinched. No one believed her anymore. The car door shut, and Karen disappeared behind the tinted glass. The cul-de-sac exhaled. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then, slowly, neighbors began clapping. First one, then another, until the whole street echoed with applause. Marcus didn't smile, didn't gloat. He simply raised a hand. This isn't about me winning, he said. It's about us living in peace. Together. That line, caught on half a dozen phone cameras, spread across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube within hours. Clips of Karen's meltdown racked up millions of views. Hashtags like hashtag HOA Justice and hashtag Karen Exposed trended for days. But inside the neighborhood, things finally shifted. Lawns didn't have to meet impossible rules. Kids could play without being screamed at. Neighbors waved to one another, not out of fear, but friendliness. And Karen? She was never seen on that cul-de-sac again. Some say she moved to a condo across town. Others swear she's still writing letters to herself, waiting for someone to listen. But everyone agrees on one thing. Karma finally caught up with her. And Marcus? He became more than a president. He became a symbol, a reminder that bullies, no matter how loud, eventually face the truth. So what do you think? Did karma hit Karen hard enough? Or do you think she's out there plotting her comeback? Eyes. Back end index pointing right, drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if you think Marcus deserves respect, and don't forget to subscribe, because in this neighborhood, the drama never sleeps.